So kettlebell swing, we teach this in 3 layers. So number 1 is the hike, number 2 is the swing, and then the 3rd layer is putting it all together. So I'll show you all 3 and then we'll talk our way through the teaching points for each phase to end up with a full kettlebell swing. So we're going to want our feet slightly wider than a deadlift stance. For most people, the inside of their feet are going to be about shoulder width. From there, we've got the kettlebell out in front of us slightly, a little further than our arms can reach, and that's the reason for that is we're going to actually roll the kettlebell back onto the back edge here. So you'll see I've got a proper hip hinge. I'm creasing the hips and reaching my hamstrings back to keep a fairly vertical shin and get a good stretch through the hamstrings. From there, I'm going to brace and focus on driving the kettlebell to the point basically right behind my sacrum in space. So from here, I've got a brace. I'm going to imagine taking the kettlebell and putting it right here, kind of right behind my butt cheeks. Motionless through the lower body. And that's it. Very basic. You'll see my body is fairly still. A common error with this is we'll see people pump, where they'll drop their hips and their knees will travel forwards. That's generally going to indicate a lack of ability to engage the hip flexors and hold a strong bottom position in the swing. So again, kettlebell a little further than you can reach. Crease the hips and reach back with the hamstrings so you can feel that stretch, vertical shin. From here, drive the kettlebell to behind the butt cheeks and back. And you're just going to replace. Again, practice that sequence of bracing, swing high, and come back with a fairly still body. Phase 2, we go from the hike, and then we follow it through with an explosive thrust of the hips. The cue I like to use here is you're going to hump the kettlebell. You're going to blast it with your crotch. The momentum and the power from your hips is going to create a pendulum with your arms, and that's going to bring the kettlebell up to shoulder height, but not higher than that. From there, you're going to aggressively bring the kettlebell down using your lats to put it again right back at that point, right behind your butt cheeks, keeping the kettlebell high. And then you return to the starting position. So it's a hike, a thrust, and then rewinding. So from here, brace, hike, thrust, hike, and back. Okay, so again, hike, thrust, hike. Fairly basic movement. The last thing we do with the kettlebell swing layer 3 is we start stringing it together to where you're going from this thrust, bringing it back to that hiked position, and then right back to the thrust. And that's how most people think of kettlebell swings. That's kind of our final phase of the swing. So that would look like this. From here, so hike to get in, thrust, hike, thrust, hike, thrust, hike, thrust, hike. And then when you're done, you simply let it down. A couple small details, common errors we'll see with this. Number 1 is when people will start to get tired or not have a clear understanding of what needs to happen in phase 1 of the swing. They'll start to initiate a squat, and that's where the kettlebell will end up becoming very low, and we'll see the swing become more of a vertical movement as opposed to a back and forth movement. That's going to look a little bit more like this in the swing. So people will go up, and they'll do this. And you can see how my knees go forward, my weight goes onto my toes, I do a little bobblehead, and really my weight's not shifting back. That kettlebell is not ending up behind me. We need to make sure, if we're seeing this, that we're going back to the hike, back to layer 1, and getting a good understanding on how to roll that kettlebell behind us without a shift in body position. The other reason we can see this happen is somebody might conceptually understand it, but they're just simply not bracing enough. If that's the case, revisit your bracing fundamentals, go through your 360 expansion, and really hunker down through your obliques to make sure everything is stiff. The last error that I'll commonly see with the kettlebell swing, especially as we start to get into continuous swings and heavier continuous swings, so using higher load on the kettlebells, is people will just lack the ability to generate full body stiffness in that high speed environment, and that's where they'll pop the head a lot and their shoulders will roll. So the remedy for this is the cue of thinking about your forehead following the kettlebell. Now you'll notice I'm not going to drop my head, but it's just going to simply engage my body to follow the bell. So from here, there, come up, and you'll see my head makes my whole body move, where through the movement, my head is in line with the rest of my spine. It's going to make it easier to generate full body stiffness and overall keep a better and stronger alignment. So phase 1, hike, phase 2, thrust, and reverse to the starting position, and then phase 3 is going through everything together.